Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty, and a slight warning today. I'm sneezing a little bit this morning. If I start sneezing, I tend to carry on for quite some time, and I'm just going to stop the stream if that's the case, because nobody wants to see me repeatedly sneeze on a camera. I certainly don't want anyone taking screenshots of me mid-sneeze. To be honest, I'm not the best-looking guy in the world anyway, and screenshots of me mid-sneeze would ruin any chance I've got of becoming a professional model. So that's just going to be a warning. On with the review. Cross to bear today from Aftershock Comics, and it's the first of two Aftershock Comics ones I'm going to be reviewing today, and it's one that, similar to Rush, I reviewed today. It's got a bit of a Western horror feel going on, but sadly, I found both the Western and the horror aspects of the one very, very thin indeed. In fact, that kind of thinness is how I'm going to be describing most of the book, unfortunately. First off, what I mean by that, I don't mean lack of page count. It's an Aftershock issue 1. They always are a little bit bigger, and you even get some back matter in there. So in terms of content, you are definitely getting your money's worth. I don't want to sell it short on that whatsoever. But pretty much every aspect of the book thus far leaves me wanting more from it. The artwork is okay. It's perfectly competent, but it lacks dynamism when it's an action sequence, and it even lacks detail on like the cityscapes and close-ups characters. The character designs are pretty simplistic as well. It's an awful lot of people wearing three-piece suits, shirts, waistcoats, hats. It's nothing really out of the ordinary. Women all look to be much of a muchness. There's very little thought put into it. There's a Native American character who stands out a little bit, but honestly, that's it. Speaking of the action sequences, there is one here where there's a gentleman who apparently is a very strong, capable fighter, and when he finally gets angry, this is what happens. You don't see a single thing other than the effect of it. The guy moving through the air, landing on the table, yeah, okay, that looks kind of cool. Again, it's not like it's a bad comic, but excuse me, in this kind of situation where you've got to build up to a very obvious implied threat in a fight, you kind of want to see more of it. In fact, one of the other characters, the main character, the protagonist, as it were, he gets introduced very early on and very quickly realizes I don't like him. He seems very, very full of himself, but also very mopey, very prone to like blaming himself, but still doing it in a position where he thinks he should be better. And it's obviously somebody else's fault. Now, I've read very many characters in the past who have not been particularly nice people, and I've managed to enjoy them because they're interesting. This is not an interesting character. He is kind of a one-note thing. I mean, you find out like fairly early on that he's the leader of a small group of people who all get themselves killed. Excuse me. And then later on, you get to see him in a fight, and again, he's supposed to be this big, really impressive guy. Just by him putting a knife against somebody's throat, the guy just pees himself and then cold cocks another guy from behind, and that's supposed to be him like showing off like how amazing he is in a fight. It doesn't do enough. In terms of a Western setting, there's actually a couple of nice bits in there. Again, you get some nice little background characters, some nice use of language, but it feels very contemporary rather than Rush from the other day, which felt of its time period. And there's even a kind of a nice nod to the criminal element in Tombstone. Yes, it is in Tombstone. I like that. Which are wearing the red bandanas, plain red rather than paisley that I wear, which was a sign of the Cowboys gang. If you've watched Tombstone or anything like that period, you probably know about that gang. And that's kind of like a nice nod. It's all right. But they don't do anything with it in this first issue. Hopefully, it'll be something to come back to. The horror aspect is, again, really quite thin. The main crux of the story appears to be there's the Order, people who go back to days of knightly yore, who came together under the banner of God to destroy evil, which makes me think they're probably talking about vampires. They kind of like really telegraph it without actually saying it. But what they're currently doing is trying to do with Jack the Ripper, the understanding being that he is actually human, but he is as evil as some of the supernatural threats they've faced, but seems to be far more capable. Like, he managed to lay a trap for them and kill a whole bunch of them without them ever saying, oh no, he is totally a vampire. He's still constantly described as just a man, but more brutal, more vicious. But you don't really get to see any of that. You get to see the after effect of it. Like when you get a shot in the room where these men have died, there's quite a nice bit where you see our protagonist shadow and reflection in a pool of blood. But you don't get any sense of visceral horror from it. It looks staged. And even when he's presenting evidence of the Ripper's crimes, apparently he's now come to Tombstone, he drops a bunch of pictures on the table, and they're so far away that you don't see any detail. Not that you really need to for Jack the Ripper. We all know he's a bad guy. But when you're trying to build up some kind of horror and suspense in this murder mystery, it's a murder story. We know who did it. There's no real like exceptional urgency to it. There's no like, oh my god, this is terrible, let's do it. There's no inventiveness. The idea of a knightly order fighting evil in the name of God, great. Against vampires, yeah, okay, seen that before. The fact that it might be Jack the Ripper as a vampire, yeah, okay, that's kind of cool, but really nothing particularly new. And when I came to the end of it, at no point was I thinking, well, there's a mystery here to explore. I just thought, okay, this seems fairly straightforward. They're probably going to get this guy who doesn't want to be part of the Order again because he quit to rejoin, and he's going to help this other guy take down the vampire, Jack the Ripper. If anything else happens and isn't that, and somebody reads it and reads this review and then goes, oh, you're wrong, feel free to tell me. It'd be really nice to be surprised by it, because I've got to say, first issue just did nothing for me at all, I'm afraid. Hopefully, when I come back later on today, 5:30 GMT, you'll be much more impressed, because I'm reviewing Heathen, another Aftershock comic. It's coloured bun, which I'm looking forward to. I'm a very good artist. Fingers crossed it will be far more enjoyable and a much better thing to watch review. If you do want to catch up, make sure you hit like, subscribe, comment, share, do everything you can to get the word out there, because I really enjoy talking to random people online about comic books. It's ace. Anyway, until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.